So how many of you know that all of us have different gifts and all of us have different talents? And we were talking to this person, we were telling them, this is what God has given you and you are this way because God created you to be who you are. And he said, no, I'm this way because I made myself be this way. And I'm like, what? How many of you believe that God literally created you to be who you are? It says he formed us in the womb. He thought of us before our parents even thought about us. And he said, I'm going to move all these little things together and I'm going to make Ashley exactly who I need her to be. I'm going to give her the talents that she needs. I'm going to give her the gifts that she needs. And he did the same exact thing for each and every one of you. So again, we have to know that we know that he created us to be exactly who he needs us to be to fulfill the plans and purposes that he has, not only for us, but also for this world. So there's two things that I want to talk about tonight. The first one is God gives us talents, but we need to steward our talents. We need to tend them. We need to cultivate them. We need to take care of our talents. And the second thing I want to talk about is talents are not just something that we do, but we have to have something inside of us. We have to have character inside us that will sustain the talents that God has given us. So, again, one time I was talking to someone, and he was saying that the reason he was the way that he was is because he went outside of his own and decided to be this way that he wanted to be, right? So I could go on and I could say that, well, I sing good because I practice, or I'm horrible at piano because I don't practice, or I am talk in front of people because that's just the way I am, right? So we have to realize that he made us who he wanted us to be, but we have to steward our talent. So God gave us talents. We are who we are because he created us that way. But we have to, yes, in our own time and on our own, who we are, we have to steward those talents, if you will. So I think what this person was trying to say is, I went outside of myself and I had a talent, so I went and I kind of cultivated that talent, right? So in Genesis 2:15 it says, then the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it. Over this scripture, I have stewardship from the beginning. Again, stewardship isn't just something that has made its way into modern day society. We have to realize that stewardship is something that literally happened from the beginning of time. As soon as he placed Adam in the garden, he gave him the job of tending and keeping the garden. I think it's cool because after that scripture, it goes on to say that he named every single animal. Do we have any animal lovers out there? I'll not raise my hand because I'm not one of those. But for the people who love animals, wouldn't that be a cool job that God says, I created you and what I want you to do is tend and keep this place that you're in, and you get to name every single animal. If you love animals, that would probably be a cool thing, wouldn't you think? So that was basically Adam's job. So he had to tend and keep the garden and everything that was inside of that garden. So we have to realize that we have a job that we have to do as well. And each and every one of us, God has given us gifts and God has given us talents. And he says, but this is what you need to do with those gifts and those talents. You have to tend to those talents. You have to cultivate those talents. Now, has anyone ever read the parable of the talents? And if you're in discipleship, you better raise your hand. 2 people have read the parable of the talents. I like interaction if you can't tell. So in the parable of the talents, there were 3 people. One had 5 and he made 5 more talents. One was given 2 and he made 2 more talents. And then there was the one who had 1 talent. And he decided, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take my talent and I'm going to hide it in the ground. So does anyone know what happened when he hid his talent in the ground? He what? He got in trouble. Yeah, I'm talking to you, Donnie. So what happened? He got in trouble, but what happened to his talent? It got taken away. Isn't that a crazy thing to think God gives us talents? God gives us talents. What's funny is when I was writing my notes, I kept writing talents, with a lot of S's. Okay, so we have to realize that God gives us talents. But what happens when we don't cultivate and we don't tend to those talents? I don't want to be the person that when I enter into those pearly white gates, I'm standing in front of God and he says, now what did you do with your talent? And I was like, I was too scared to use it, so I hid it in the ground. Would anyone want to be that person? Or do you want to be the person who walks up to the pearly white gates and is like, God, here I am. And he says, now what did you do with the talent? And you're like, man, I cultivated it, I tended it, I used it. You gave me another one. I cultivated it, I tended it, I used that one too. And he's like, and I gave you another one. Who would you want to be in that situation? Because a lot of times what happens in our lives is we have these talents, and what happens is we decide to let natural things get in the way from us using our talents, whether it would be, well, I'm a little too uncomfortable to use that talent, or I'm scared to use that talent. So God gives us talents, but sometimes because of these fleshly reasons, we decide to not tend and keep our talent, and we decide to hide the talent. Again, it might be because you are scared to use it. It might be because you are uncomfortable. Maybe someone told you that, you know what, you suck at whatever it is that you're doing, and you decide, well, if they think I suck, maybe I do suck, and then you start doubting what God gave you, and again, you decide to hide that talent in the ground. Whatever it may be, we need to realize that when God gives us a gift and a talent, we cannot come up with excuses as to why we don't want to use those talents. What we need to do is say, God has given me a talent. And if you didn't raise your hand at the beginning when I asked you if you believe that God gave you a talent, I promise you that he has given you a talent. So we have to look deep inside and say, okay, what is it that God gave me? And again, maybe it's a friendly smile. Some people don't have a friendly smile. Have you ever met that person? It's like grump 24/7, right? Maybe it's just that you're the one who's like awesome at welcoming people in. Maybe you're the person who just like, can like be that listening ear. Has anyone ever met someone who can't listen worth crap? It's like you're talking to them and it's like, are you even listening to what I'm saying? You have to search inside of me and say, God, what is it? What are the talents that you gave me? And let me come up with reasons why I can use those talents. I know someone, he may or may not be my husband, he says, you have time for what you want to have time for. I'm busy, I can't do that, or I'm scared, I can't do that. But we have to realize that God gave us something. We have to well up that desire inside of us that says, God, I want to use my gifts and I want to use my talents for you. So I'm just going to pray and say, open the door wherever it is that you want me to use it. But in the meantime, I'm going to tend and I'm going to cultivate and steward that talent. Again, from the very beginning, stewardship was in place, and God expects us to steward our gifts and our talents. And to do that, we must invest time and energy into making our talents the best that we can. Again, who would want to one day stand in front of God and be like, I don't know, I didn't have time for that. Sorry, I just hit it in the ground. I was just too busy. I was just too busy with work or whatever it may be. And maybe you think like, well, I don't know, school was so busy, so I just kind of set my talent aside, and then, God, when I'm done with school, and all of a sudden I got this hot boyfriend that I'm dating, so then it's like, God, I'm just dating this guy, and I just don't really have time, or, I had to choose between work and using my talent, and I just, I need the money. I know you'll provide, but I can too. So God, I'm just gonna, set my talent aside there. Whatever it may be, we have to realize that we have to steward, again, those talents. So we have to get and cultivate and actually use the gifts and talents that he's given us. So many times we think so much about these talents that God has given us and what we're going to do with these talents. And again, there's two parts to this that I want you to understand. One is that we do have a talent and we have a responsibility to cultivate and steward that talent, right? But sometimes we get so caught up on what we're going to do with that talent that we forget about the character that's happening inside of us, again, that's going to sustain that talent. In Genesis 25:29-34, it says, Now Jacob cooked a stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, Please feed me with that same red stew, for I am weary. Therefore his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, Sell me your birthright as of this day. And Esau said, Look, I'm about to die, so what is this birthright to me? Then Jacob said, "Swear to me as of this day." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of lentils, and he ate and drank, arose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Again, so here we have the story of Jacob and Esau. And why was it that Esau decided to sell his birthright? He was hungry. Has anyone ever been hungry before? Has anyone ever, one time, has anyone ever been hangry before? Hangry, hungry and angry. A lot of times what happens, maybe this is just like a natural situation, is when we are hungry / hangry, we make some crazy decisions in that state. Has anyone ever met anyone who's hungry and it's just like the claws come out? Has anyone ever met someone like that? Jordan, are you that person? What about someone who's sleepy? Have you ever met someone who was sleepy and it was just like, if you wake me up, man, I'm gonna karate chop you. So all these are different areas of life that we go through where we kind of let our emotions get the best of us. Have you ever been in a heated argument and you said something that, man, after that argument, you wish you could have taken back? In the heat of the moment, I remember one time, like, when Mike and I first started dating, I am like feisty. I can be feisty. Not always, but I don't know, I probably get it from my mom. If I had to guess one parent, it's probably, right? So I don't even remember what happened, but I just remember I was just not happy, right? And I'm like, I think that, and I'm talking about like this, like, and he's like, I just need to say something. And I'm like, what? And he's like, honestly, when you yell, I don't hear you. So he's like, if you want, like, let's just talk about it. Like, just calm down. Let's just talk about it. And it's so funny because I remember that so much. And I just remember even one time I was mad about something else. And I was like saying all this stuff. My mom's like, why don't you just chill out for a second? And then tomorrow you can go talk to the person. I'm like, no, but I just want it. She's like, just wait a moment. And I remember I slept on it. In the morning, it was like not even that big of a deal. But sometimes what happens is we let our emotions get the best of us. So what we do, like Esau, he's just so hungry, I'm going to sell my birthright for soup. That's crazy, right? But what we do is we sell out to something, or maybe we say things that we shouldn't have said because we're angry, or we're living in these emotions that we are walking through life, and emotions kind of cloud our judgment. And then instead of saying, God, what is it that you need me to do? Or God, what should I do? Or let me just take a moment to think about it. We start acting out in our emotions. So many times we let our emotions get the best of us. And this is exactly what Esau did when he sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. It was like he couldn't control himself. He just had to eat. And it just seems so silly because I've never been like that hungry. Like, I can't imagine like just being hungry and going home and be like, like saying to my brother Billy, like, well, you know what? Just have mom and pops write me out of the will. Just give me like a turkey sandwich. Like, I just couldn't even imagine, like, because that's basically like what he did, right? But sometimes we do this in life, and maybe it's even subconsciously that we don't even realize, but we let our emotions rule the decisions that we make. So again, instead of praying and asking God what's the right decision that we need to make, or taking time to even think about it, what happens is we lose control of our lives. Maybe we lose control of even our gifts and our talents because we're letting those emotions get the best of us. The Bible talks about the acts of the flesh. Has anyone ever heard that? You better raise your hand because I just read it at the beginning of service. That was a trick question. In Galatians 5:19-21, it says, the acts of the flesh are obvious. I like how it says that. I think in the New King James Version it says something different, but I'm reading from the NIV tonight, and it says the acts of the flesh are obvious. Sexual immorality, impurity, debauchery, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, discord, jealousy, fits of rage, selfish ambition, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and the like. I warn you, as I did before, that those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. So many times we let things like these get in the way of our gifts and our talents. Many times we let these acts of flesh, if you will, rule in our lives. And God has called each and every one of us to be a part of his plan. But as it says earlier in this chapter, that the flesh and the spirit are contrary to one another. So if we walk in the spirit, we must walk in the fruits of the spirit. And it says, I have here, this is just like an important thing. Many times it's easy to think the problem is outward. The problem is my talent. The problem is what God gave me. The problem is who God created me to be. But usually most of the time it all comes down to what is going on in the inside. What is going on in your heart? And if any one of these things are in our heart, it really can get in the way of us living our life 100% fully devoted to Christ. Sexual immorality, impurity, hatred, jealousy, rage, selfishness. All of these things are the acts of the flesh. And so many times, like many people, you kind of want to like pull certain things out. Like, well, do you know that the acts of the flesh are only idolatry and impurity and sexual immorality? Jealousy, not a big deal. But that says that that's part of the flesh as well. So all these things, if it's the gifts and talent that God has blessed you with, many times the things of the flesh are the things that stand in the way from us utilizing these talents. So I have a list of tiny little examples. I try to hit every little type of area according to the acts of the flesh, right? So I wanted the solo and I didn't get the solo, so forget it. I'm not singing anymore. I don't like the person in charge of that ministry, so I'm not going to volunteer there. I'm just going to find another place. I want to do things the way I want to do them, or else I just don't really want to be involved. I couldn't set my desire to have sex aside until marriage, so I'm just going to give in and live one life this day and another life another day. Porn, it's just too great. So now when I'm at church, I just look at women constantly, judging their appearance. I like to drink, point blank. I get drunk, so what? Gifts and talents, whatever. I'm just going to drink, I don't care. I'm constantly bitter with someone in my heart. I'm so bitter that my heart is so hard that I can't even allow other people into my heart, and I really can't love Jesus the way that I know that I'm supposed to because of this bitterness that I have towards someone else. I'm constantly causing discord and strife between myself and someone else. Maybe I'm even causing discord between myself and the ministry that I'm involved in. So, I have a question. Does anyone realize the common word in all those sentences? I. That is the common word, is because all of these things, acts of the flesh, are about me. Me. I want this. I want to do this. I think it should be like this. I want to have sex before marriage, so I'm going to have sex before marriage. I'm going to drink, so what? I'm 21. I'm going to go out and smoke and look at porn, and I'm going to gossip behind her back. She deserves it anyway. All these things make it about us and not about him. So the acts of the flesh, again, sometimes get in the way of allowing our gifts and talents to really succeed. Because if we really just said, God, you gave me gifts and talents, so I'm going to use them however it is that you want me to use them. Here I am. I'm willing. I'm open. Use them. Are we going to get mad if someone says something about the way that we're using the gifts and talents? Are we going to decide, well, I don't like that person in that ministry, so I'm just going to switch ministry? What happens there is we don't really work out what's really going on inside of our heart. We just leave the problem there, go on to the next situation, have a problem, not really deal with the heart, move on to the next situation. And I just know, one time they came to Mount Zion, they left another church, and they're just like, all those people at the church and all this and this, and they did this to me, and they did this, and this happened to me, and this happened to me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, that's crazy. And then a year later at Mount Zion, all these people in this church, it's like, this person did this to me, and this person did this to me. And I'm like, I'm kind of noticing something similar. If we don't deal with our heart, if we always make the situation about someone else, the situation's never going to be about God. It's like if you have a problem with someone and you think that maybe they have a problem with you, can you believe, do you know what Peter said to me? I can't even believe what Peter said to me. And he's just, I can't even, And you go, Ariel, can you believe what Billy, Peter, have you ever talked to him? Did he say anything about me? And you go around, you kind of like figure it out instead of just saying, what happened? Peter, you know what? You said something to me and it kind of sat a little wrong. Is something wrong? And he says, and then we work it out, right? And then all of a sudden, I'm not getting held back from everything that God has for me because I have this hard heart against Peter. Does anyone know what I'm saying? All these acts of the flesh are things that are going to get in the way from us fully becoming everything that God has for us. All these acts of the flesh are going to get in the way from us fully utilizing our gifts and talents if we're always looking for something to cause division, if something's always causing strife, if there's always bitterness, if we're always having the lust of the mind and the lust of the flesh and the pride of life and all these different things. We're offering our talents to God, but it's like a lukewarm, like, I'll give you this as long as you give me this. God, I'm going to tithe you 10% as long as someone else gives me 20% the next day. Again, what's happening is we're making it about us and not about God. So we have to cultivate our talents, yes, but we really, really, really need to examine our hearts and realize the character of who we are and what is going on in our hearts is what is really going to sustain the gifts and talents that God has given us. And there's a process that needs to happen in us. And the process is going from being self-centered to God-centered, not thinking about us and my wants and my desires and my needs, but saying, God, what is it that you need? God, there's this door that's open over here, but it's a little scary. But Lord, if that's the door that you want me to go through, God, I'm going to go through that. God, I can't stand this person who's on stage with me, but Lord, work in my heart. Because most of the time, if we can't stand someone, it's like, Lord, change them. Oh, God, they're so annoying. Just please, let them just shut up. Oh, Lord, put stitches in their mouth so they'll never be able to talk to me on the stage. And, just put earmuffs over my ears so if they do say something, Lord, just let me make it through this service. And what happens is, again, we make it about someone else instead of saying, God, what is it in my heart? How can you change me to be more like we need to be, you, God, whoever you want, him. We need to be like him. We need to say, God, I want to be who you are. And again, I don't want to just give lukewarm and I don't want to just give out of the fleshly desires of my heart. But God, I really want to give from a place that you've called me. God, I want to give from a place that I can really cultivate these gifts and talents and give them to you with everything that I have. Again, we need to go from self-centered to God-centered. Our talents need to go from not something that satisfies us, but something that fulfills the plans and purposes that God has. Because of our gifts and talents, they weren't given to us so we could pat ourselves on the shoulder and say, good job, Ashley. Our talents and gifts were not given to us so others pat ourselves on the shoulders and say, good job, Ashley. It's not about us. He's given us these gifts and talents according to our abilities that we would be able to use them again for the plans and purposes that he has, and ultimately that we would be able to bring glory to God. It is literally all about him. And in Galatians 5:22-23, it says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such, there is no law. So when you think of the fruits of the Spirit, like growing up, I always just thought of like all the lovely sides of the fruits of the Spirit. Love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness. And then it's like long suffering. What? Fruits of the Spirit is long suffering? Self-control. So I have another question. The difference between the acts of the flesh, because the common word in the acts of the flesh was what? What's the difference between the acts of the flesh and the fruits of the Spirit? The fruits of the Spirit is about other people. And that's the difference. That's literally the difference, is the acts of the flesh is making everything about ourselves. The fruits of the Spirit says, I'm going to have love towards you. I'm going to have peace towards you. I'm going to be long-suffering. If you're suffering, I'm going to be there with you and I'm going to suffer through it. I'm going to be selfless. I'm going to have self-control so I can, again, follow in whatever it is that God has. So that's really the difference between the acts of the flesh and the fruits of the Spirit. So we need to have self-control. It's like, I just love food. If you know me, like that is, I don't even know, that's probably my dad. Or maybe my mom, maybe both of them. It's like the food is my mom, the chocolate and everything is my dad. It was just like, I was just, what is it called? Hungry. No. So that's like my thing, and it's like, you know the experiments they have when like they put the kids in the room and it's like, here's one marshmallow, but if you wait 10 minutes, you're gonna have two. I would have been the kid who's like, I'll just have one marshmallow because I have to have this right now. Like that is my thing, right? So self-control, that's not something that, it's not like I'm like, oh, snap your finger and it's like bewitched, you'll just wiggle your nose and all of a sudden you're going to have self-control. That's something that's going to happen over time. That's something that has to happen in our heart. But it's like Esau, because he did not have self-control, because he said, I'm so hungry that I'm going to sell my birthright for one morsel of food. So we need to realize how easy it is to be motivated by the urges, the desires, and the acts of the flesh inside of us, but we cannot be motivated by those things. There's a character development that needs to happen. Again, as a baby, we're born into this world motivated by our needs. We're hungry, so you cry. You are just want to be cuddled, so you cry. You pooped all over every single time you go to the bathroom. This is for my niece Rhea, when you're old enough to watch this. So you cry, right? So we come into this world motivated by our wants and our needs. But as we grow and as we mature, we realize that the choices that we make can't be motivated by selfish desires, right? So does anyone have a friend in their life that is super emotional? Boyfriends, don't just look at your girlfriends. Because I've come to realize that there are some men who are, if not more, just as emotional as women. So, does anyone have that super emotional friend? It's kind of like you maybe have, or maybe it's not even a friend, maybe it's just someone in your life, and you kind of like walk up to them and it's like, I'm not really sure what kind of mood you're gonna be in, so I'm just gonna tiptoe around and walk on eggshells till I can kind of feel you out and see like, did you wake up on the right side of the bed or the wrong side of the bed, right? Does anyone have that friend? So, again, that is being motivated by, I have a bad day, so I'm going to take my bad day out on you. I'm going to take my bad day out on you. I'm going to take my bad day out on you. I'm not going to go to church. I'm just going to wallow in my self-pity. Our emotions cannot rule us. We cannot live our lives on, again, this roller coaster of emotions, but we need to be full of the fruits of the Spirit and realize that those are the traits that are going to help our gifts and talents and help us to become everything that God has called us to be. Again, love is about other people. Kindness, about other people. Goodness, other people. Faithfulness, other people. We need to be so full of God and so full of the fruits of the Spirit that we can set our own wants and needs aside and focus on what God really needs from us. Because how many of you know that He's always going to take care of us? Do you believe that? Because if you don't, I promise you that He's always going to take care of us. But what happens so many times is we want to take care of us because we're so nervous that God's not going to take care of us, that we start taking care of ourselves and we forget about everyone else. We forget about the gifts and talents. We forget about the ministries. We forget about the people, and we start focusing on God ourselves. But I promise you that God will take care of you. So what we need to do is say, God, I don't want to be self-centered anymore, but I want to be so God-centered, and then I'll know that you're going to take care of me. Again, we need to really turn our attention and everything that we have towards Him. Can I have the musicians come forward tonight? And in Genesis 32:28, it says, and he said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed. To steward our talents, we must realize there is a process that we have to go through to fully come into everything that God has for us. And sometimes there is a struggle. Can you recall the story of Jacob when he's struggling with the angel? Does anyone remember that story? But I love it because you have struggled, but you have prevailed. So the change may seem tough at first. And it's easy to just sit out there and be like, oh, I have nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong in my heart. My heart's great. My talents are great. I'm so, just perfect. Whatever it is. But really tonight, I really want you to examine your heart and just say, God, whatever it is that's inside of me, and no matter how tough it's going to be for you to weed that out, no matter how uncomfortable it may be, I want to prevail. Again, the change, it might seem tough at first, but I promise you it will be so worth it. Many people in the Bible went through a character change to become everything that God wanted them to be. And that's what I think is so awesome. Because now back in the Bible, they actually changed their name, which was a cool outward action of really the process, the inner change that was happening inside of each of them. It says Abram went from exalted father to Abraham, that was father of many. Sarai went from argumentative to Sarah, who is princess. Jacob was the heel grabber to Israel, he who prevails with God. God wants and desires for us to prevail. But there has to be a change that happens on the inside of each and every one of us. Again, this change is not something that just happens on the outside, but it's something that really goes on deep down inside of our hearts, where we can really just open our hearts. And that's why when I pray at the beginning of service, God, I pray that you soften our hearts. I'm not just saying that just to say that, but I'm literally praying that each and every one of you, when you come in here and sit down, that your heart would be so soft and really ready to receive everything that God has for you. And in Mark 12:30, it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. With everything that we have inside of us, that's how we should love him. And the same love that we have towards him is ultimately the same love that we need to pour out and share with other people. It says no greater love than this is to one who lays down his life for a friend. Again, all of this is about saying, God, I don't want this to be about me anymore. I don't want to think that you gave me the gifts and talents so I could just be so awesome. But God, I want to realize that you gave me all these gifts and these talents so I can use them to reach people that maybe someone else can't reach. So I can use these gifts and these talents to bring glory to your name. So I can use these gifts and talents to the full ability that you have for me. But God, whatever it is that needs to happen on the inside, Lord, I'm ready. God, what needs to happen on the inside, I'm willing. God, I'm ready, I'm willing, I'm open, I'm moldable. So tonight, if you guys could just bow your heads with me tonight.